First and foremost, thanks so much for taking some of your time today to come and sit down, essentially be part of an insightful conversation with two very influential people within not just football but within our community, right? Of course, it is that time of year where there's a lot of festive cheer, and this conversation is quite insightful as well, because ultimately it's the time of year where you get to reflect on a lot. It's been a long year, so many things, so it's only right that we do that with one of the informed players in the Premier League at the moment, someone that's been a real advocate and pushing forward the conversation about mental health and just player well-being in general within football. But first and foremost, bro, of course, this season's a very, very different season. Not that many seasons. There's a midweek break out in Dubai, so taking it easy. How are you at the moment, and how's it been just having this sort of break that you probably wouldn't have ever had before?
Of course, it's a bit strange. Normally I've been getting ready for a match, but I've enjoyed it because I've had time to reflect, especially everyone not going through the best of times at the moment. So I feel like not just for me, but for the whole team, we definitely needed it to recharge and go again.
How about you, Mark? Because I'm sure you wish you had them sort of breaks when you're playing as well. 2 weeks is unheard of, especially in the football calendar, to have time to sort of unwind for a bit and get back to the grind. How important do you reckon it is to have moments of stillness and just calm?
Moments of stillness are important, just for reflection, sometimes, just to recharge as well. I think these are all things that in football you don't get much time to do that, you don't get much time to stop, but obviously in life, and everybody knows here, everyone here, this is a moment to just stop and kind of, put a full stop on things. I think it's something that I've learned to do over time, and I think it's something that is incredibly important.
Just to make sure, we're all football fans in here, right? Right. So I'm sure we've all played football at some point, or we'll get into a game when we're watching it, but from a perspective of a former professional, a current professional, it's an ultra competitive environment, right? It's 0.001% to get to the Premier League. You both have achieved that. But how have you both previously managed to sort of break away from that environment when, from the age of 8 or 9, you're within this system and you're working towards a goal, and then you finally, you get to academy, you get a scholar, you get your professional contract, and you're still going. How do you break away from those moments? What do you do to sort of take time for yourselves?
I can answer that because it's different for me now, having been in a position to look back on my career. I never did it once.
Really?
Until I stopped playing, and I looked back and I was like, that was alright, the whole time it's just like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Next contract, next game, next move, whatever. You don't actually look at any point in your career and celebrate it. You're not really encouraged to do that. And that's something that I probably adopted into my life outside of work as well. But I'm trying to work on that because I think it's important. Celebrating the wins is important, because without it, what you're doing, just kind of just going just round and round and round and just chasing the next thing and chasing the next win without actually having a reason to win. It's me.
No, that's what I looked at him straight away.
Help me.
Yeah, because you always want to improve, especially the players. You always want to get to the next step. But it's very important to celebrate your achievement, which is what my friends and my family always remind me, that it's not easy to get to where you are. So I do get that little bit of celebration, but for me, I'd always like to achieve more.
And it's interesting that's what you touched on, Marvin, because post your career and even towards the end of your career, you were very vocal about player well-being, not just player mental health, just first and foremost, you're a human being before you're a professional footballer. Why was that so important for you to do in those moments where you reflect on yourself? And Alex, one thing that I've always appreciated about you is, even from a social perspective, the way you speak to your community audience is sort of like the most recent caption, "Let me be." It's like, I'm a human being, let me do my thing. Why is it so important that you're both pushing those messages out in a space where, once again, footballers are always looked at and seen as role models? Why is it important that you push those messages that you need to be yourselves as well and just take time?
Well, for me, because at the end of the day, take football away, we are human. So whatever a normal person goes through, obviously maybe different scales, we all go through similar things at the end of the day. So me growing up, I'm obviously getting into my peak of my career. I'm now understanding that when I was younger, I always wanted to see what people were saying, and they will say, footballers can't do this or can't do that. But I'm just showing that as much as I've enjoyed football, I would like to enjoy life as well. So I like to have that time away from football and these 2 weeks, just literally enjoying my friends and my family.
I like your perspective, because it's it's not even it's fact. You are essentially a pioneer in opening up that conversation at a time where it's very taboo to talk about anything but playing football. You were at the forefront of saying that I am Marvin Sordell, the person before. What made you get to that place to start having that conversation?
I mean, to be honest, it was easy because the peak of my career was already behind me. So I didn't have anything to lose. I didn't have anything really to risk in terms of my career. In terms of football, I got to a point where I was like, you're either going to play me because I'm good enough. If you don't, I'm not really that bothered to be honest anymore. I was kind of almost out of frustration at the time as well. But I think for me, it was just like understanding that at a point you get to in your career, you have to understand as a player that it isn't your hobby anymore. So every single player starts playing football because it's your hobby. Hobby is a safe place to just be happy and your emotions are just purely positive. At some point that crosses over into the job, that can be at 8, 9 years old in the system and there's pressure piled onto you. It could be slightly later down the line because you might be a player where things are just feel easy, comfortable and maybe get to like 19, 20 where then pressure gets put upon you and all of a sudden you're expected to deliver results. This is your job. But there is just like this blurred thing within football that we don't realize that when that crossover happens, and so we're going into games and training and we're going, my touch wasn't good, or I had a bad day at training, and you're just down because all of your joy you expect your joy to come from work, which no one in this room goes to work and goes, I need to just have it. Every single day needs to be amazing. I need to have all my positive emotion coming from work. You would say that doesn't make any sense because you go home and you're like, this is the thing I love doing, where it is doing Lego that people do. For me, it was like, I was learning to fly, I was writing, I was playing the piano, I did all these other things that made me think, I can just go here and be happy. I'm not going to be judged on my performance. Obviously, my performance flying a plane had to be pretty good because it can't not be. But it was a place where I was just safe in terms of my emotions. Whereas I got to that point in my career and I was like, I needed to speak about that and speak about the fact that all players have to kind of have that outlook in like, this is your job. You need to have a safe space for your emotions, positive emotions, to just be happy, just think, on its own.
What would you say your safe space is away from football? I know you mentioned friends and family is important, but how have you sort of managed to find that escapism to sort of free yourself away from the job aspect of football?
Obviously, like you said, my friends and family, I'm the sort of guy just likes to plant out vibes, whether it's anywhere. But me and my friends, they will start saying I'm a rapper, I'm not a rapper. I was a rapper in the back. But I do have certain things, like I have a studio in my house that we just go and just talk about anything, talk about life. I think that's one thing.
Quick 16.
But
it's such a nice area of discussion that we've touched on, because ultimately, I mean, I was one of those people, I wasn't good enough to go professional and whatnot, and I'm sure many of us had ambitions of doing things that we haven't done, but as you mentioned, it's a job. And the thing about jobs sometimes is that, like anyone in this room, you go through moments where it's not the greatest. It's just that it's magnified because it's in front of the world. In those moments, what are some of the things that helped you sort of overcome that? And I know, Alex, probably best to start with you in this, because you said you're in the peak of your career, but you're in this lovely space now where a lot of the potential and everything that everyone saw, it's working well, but it's not always been the best of space. How did you manage to sort of navigate that? Who was really important for you in those moments in time, and how have you managed to come out on the better side of that?
I can just talk about from recent experience. Obviously, last season I wasn't playing as much as I would like to, and in January we had the African Cup of Nations and had that red card, which kind of like essentially knocked us out. So from then I just thought it's a bit of a difficult time for me. I've now had to come to a new manager, Frank Lampard, and I'm grateful for him and my family, because especially him, he was saying to me, because in training I'll just be on my own, just train. I always train, or I always use football to express myself, just a bit of skills. He said, why don't you play matches the way you train? And he gave me that freedom and license to do so. Of course, he's put me in a different position in midfield. I was playing out wide, but just him giving me that confidence to do so, I almost felt unstoppable. So ever since then, it's just like I've had that freedom to just go and enjoy my football.
And there's something beautiful that as well, because I feel like in moments of life, we always have someone that enables us to find the best version of ourselves. And And sometimes when you're not in those positions where someone's understanding or putting you through the best, it can affect your mental being, it can affect you. So that how freeing is that for a manager to come in and be like, well, let's put you in this position, and telling you that it's a one small thing, play how you train. But how freeing is that moment, and what does it do for you, not just in terms of on the pitch, but your whole person?
It's like that bit of pressure that was on my shoulders literally just left me. Because before then, I always had respect for managers, but they would probably say to me, less touches, pass it to the more creative people, and literally just do your bit for the team. Whereas now, it's like almost try something, even if it don't come off, go again, like pick your head up and go again. So ever since I've had that mindset, I've always felt like I'm going into games fearless, which I've enjoyed, and it's helped me as a person. Like now, I don't feel like I'm afraid to just show my personality, also because of my friends as well. That just express myself as much as I can. Don't be shy of it.
For both of you, on personality and expressing yourself, as you mentioned, football is a form of expression. People get into the game because they love it, they enjoy it, they play football. But one thing you see, especially when you look at sort of our communities, that expression and that personality, it's kind of suppressed a lot. It's like you have to leave that at the door. And I mean, I'm not going to go too much into commentary that we've seen, but it's all like Brazilians, they're not allowed to dance. Like, why is it, from your perspective, why do we think that personality and expression is suppressed? And as you know, footballers, what does that do to your mental? Because ultimately, this is you just showcasing who you are. You've done this all your life, and you're now told you can't do that. Like, what effects that have?
I mean, put it this way: it's easier to manage one type of person than it is to manage 25 different types of people. I think that's the thing, it's just pure ease. Not necessarily because it produces better results, because one thing I've taken from that thought process into business is that, you know, if you have diversity of people, you have diversity of thought, and you have diversity of results. Everything is about finding solutions to problems. That is literally life. Problem, solution. And the more different ways you can solve a problem, the better. So the best teams in the squads in football obviously have people who think differently, play differently, act differently, because that's like that they can unlock the team in that way. They can unlock the team in that way with all these different options. So it's probably a lazy way of managing, because they go, it's just easy to have this one type of player, one type of personality, and as soon as they face a problem that one personality can't solve, because they've got nothing else, they come stuck. So, you know, I mean, there's so many things that football needs to evolve in, but you know, that kind of outlook on personality, not expressing yourself, is like, managers say all the time, express yourself on the pitch. It's like, you can't just express yourself on the pitch. Like, you're expressing yourself fully. You're a human being. Like, you just be yourself at all times, or not at all. Like, it doesn't really work. You can't just switch it on and off.
I'll tell a story, and I won't give any details of who it was, but I was very fortunate to be in the situation because I watched you like speak and Premier League manager or anything. There was this story about how a player came into the change room and asked, "Why have I not been playing?" And the response was, "We're like this." So what? Gucci belt. That's the reason why the player wasn't playing. So it's like, these are the sort of mindsets sometimes that players are having to have to come against, and it's like, so what? I'm not allowed to dress how I want to dress. I can't talk how I want to talk. You want me to be a prototype of something I'm not. And then football is your safe space from when you're young. A lot of people from the places that we come from played football because it was like, you know, it was community. And now, in a place where your safe space doesn't even feel safe anymore, and we wonder why there's a lot of effects on footballers, which is quite interesting. But on that discussion as well, football by nature is a team sport. But we see that a lot of time, even though there's loads of people, and people can testify to this as well, it's very easy to feel alone when there's still loads of people around you. That, in terms of change rooms you've seen and everything, is that something that's quite common, especially amongst men in groups, where might be stuff going on and people just don't know about it, even though you're in teams?
Well, I'm happy that at Everton it's not really like that, because we've got, for example, our captain Seamus Coleman is constantly every day, even though when I wasn't playing, constantly saying, "Are you okay? Let's just keep going, the time will come." He's always checking up on people. So from my experience, it's always been very positive. Like, there's always been a place where you can talk and feel free. If we're going through any difficulties, you have that license to speak to anyone. And even at Arsenal, to be fair, like, there was a psychiatrist that was as an option, and I took the option as well. And Wenger himself would actually say, if you have an issue that's outside of football, talk to him and they'll solve it. So I've never had that issue personally. Others might have, but not me.
How about from your side?
Yeah, I mean, I was in a lot of different change rooms. So like, you know, some were more positive than others, and that sometimes that comes from management staff. Sometimes that comes from players. I think it is a strange environment. It's different to most environments. Particularly the fact that it is completely male dominated. So at times you're going to have positive things, and obviously at times you're going to have more negative ones. But that comes down to the personalities that are in that environment. And so, there were times where, the management, like the coaching staff, were just completely separate from the group. The group felt really tight, but nobody really spoke to the coaching staff or would really give them much information, because they were like, we don't really get on with them that well. We're kind of playing together as a group. And I've been in others that it's like part of the group is like split, and some are like with the coaching staff, and some are kind of like left to their own devices. And some where it's just like felt like a massive thing, everyone's just in it together. So it just depends on the personalities that you have in that environment, and who's there and wanting to do what. Because like you said, like he's had two great environments, and so that just comes down to people setting that.
100%. You mentioned psychiatrists, which for me is really interesting. Like, what was your experience with that? Because Marvin, you can protest this. There is this sort of stigma about talking out or going to seek help, especially within our community. How did you find that when you went? Was you skeptical at first when it was presented to you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, because you're literally almost leaving yourself vulnerable, sort of thing. But I feel like at the time, because I wasn't playing, and I wasn't playing as well as I should be if I was coming off the bench, Wenger thought, maybe there's a great issue, because in training I'm always giving 100%, but it's just something that's not working. Like, just see what we can do. And for me, going up first, I was like, nah, man, I'm not on that. I really want to do that. But actually going and getting things off my chest, and even gave me an app to use on my phone. I haven't used it in a while because I've been in a good space right now, but it actually helped me get through a lot of like difficult times. Like, if I was ever having something on my mind, then I'll just go on this app. It's like 20 minutes out of the day, and it used to work for me. So yeah, but it worked for a few of us in the team. There was a good 8 of us that was seeing. You can see them on your own, or you have like a group session, so it was good.
Did you ever have similar, Marvin, where you went to seek help or therapy or something just to sort of help with where you were?
I did, but it was completely separate from football. I mean, I had a lot of resistance, particularly in my younger years of playing football, to the fact that I was going to therapy. When I look back, I'm like, fuck no, that's dangerous. Someone who's not in a great place, being basically told to not go down that path of therapy and psychology and stuff is not good. But thankfully football's moved on a lot in that time, and I think conversations like this are happening a lot more often. People are understanding that therapy is it's within football. We have all these boxes. We have the nutrition, hydration, rest, like literally everything. And it's just like now I think slowly it's creeping in that the mind is just another box. It's just like make sure that's ticked, because that's how we perform to our best. So yeah, I mean we're slowly getting there, but yeah, I've got different things at different times.
It is again, when you think about it, just not just within football but society, some of the societal norms that were normal, like don't show emotion, that's braggadocious, manly stuff, like how dangerous that is to so many people. Whereas now we're in a space where having conversations like this is normal. Like you said, allowing yourself to feel vulnerable is normal. But a massive other side of that is the influence of social media and things, where it's for good, we can spread messages like this today and it's great. The other side where it's like you're kind of hyper exposed to so much thought. And I guess the difference between both of you is that you had social media whilst you're playing, but it's magnified to a completely different level now that you're in the peak of your career. How do you navigate? How do you unplug from the matrix?
At first, when you're younger, coming into the scene, and obviously you're playing well, you just want to see what everyone's saying.
You want to find the comps, innit?
Yeah, you want to find everything. You want to find the clips. You want to find, this guy said this. He's like, guys, showing all the man. But then when you're not playing well, it's like there's still people that are trying to be positive, but it's just that one comment or something that'll just get you mad. It's like,
it's always one.
There's always one.
It's like it's the stupid comment that doesn't make sense.
Doesn't even make sense.
Like someone can say the worst thing about you, and then someone will be like, no, his trim's there. Or
his kit swag or something silly like that. So then I just thought, like before it used to affect me, like little things like that. No, it'll be like one comment out of like 90. And then now it's like, I don't even look at it. If I ever look at something, it's just something small just to see what my family are posting, my friends, what's the latest, but nothing like comment-wise. I think like the main criticism or constructive criticism I take is from like my coaching staff, my family and friends, never from like social media.
But how's it finding the balance? Because ultimately, with the world that you're in now, there is a purpose to stay relevant and stay, in front of people's minds, right? Ultimately, social media is great for that. But it's that balance between you're putting yourself present and you're inviting people to be at your doorstep to then say these things. It's like how do you find the balance? I guess for you now that you're looking and seeing what it's like, and with all of the storytelling you do, how do you ensure that it's more of the greater than the worst?
I mean, I'm lucky I get to choose everything that I do. Like, if I don't want to do something, I just say no, I'm not doing it. And I do a lot of things because I want to do it. And a lot of things that are positive, I think, and I sit in a place of responsibility, being able to tell stories and being able to shape narrative to an extent. So, because of that, I try to use it for the best way that I can. But growing up with social media, like when I first started playing, social media was first becoming a thing. It affected me a lot. But then I got to a point in my life I was like, I actually don't care about what any of these people are saying. And I placed the validation that I needed, I placed it in the places that were important. I think that's a lot of us, we place validation in places that are not important. We give it to people just need without really thinking like, why am I giving validation to these people? Your family, your friends, like your coach, people who are actually important within different things. You want validation from them. And that's where I place my validation, so it doesn't really matter. I can put myself out there, I can say whatever. I can have a million comments that say negative things. If one person says that matters to me, says, you know what, I really appreciate you did that, or I think that's important, I think that was great. That's what I'm at.
Of course, we're here with Better today, and one thing that I love is that the sense of community, that real sense of community. Like, how important do you think it is that stuff like this and in general coming together to actually discuss things is, and especially compared to when you were playing football, how important is it? Similar to stuff like, Marvin, our good friend Marvin, what he tried to create. How important is it that we keep creating more spaces where people can be vulnerable, talk about lived experiences and essentially support each other?
Community is everything. I think even just going back to something Alex was saying about, he gets that support from his coach, from his friends, from his family. Like, we need people around us to support us, because we can't do everything on our own. Like, it's not possible. And so having these spaces, like have safe space in your family and your friends, and sometimes your colleagues, and sometimes it's more broader than that, like rooms like this, where it is just a safe space to just be yourself. Because in the end of the day, like, who wants to be someone they're not? I think one of my favorite quotes ever is, the privilege of a lifetime is to be yourself. And I read that for the first time and I was like, of course, like, obviously. And then it kind of dawned on me a bit more. I was like, gee, a lot of people don't get to be themselves, and that's because of the space they're in. So it's our responsibility as well, and I use responsibility a lot. I think there is so much that we have is to have those safe spaces within our individual communications or our broader communications.
Before we go into some audience questions, Alex, like, thinking about where you are in your career now, like all the information you've taken in, the lived experience, if you could give a young Alex a piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Always remember your family and friends, because without them, I would have broken out so many times. So that's why I'm always grateful. I'm always with them almost 24/7, because it's not just my journey. I feel like it's theirs as well. So what I do is for them.
No, you're good for that. Obviously, you come back to the ends, kicking ball in London.
Always,
it's important, especially when again, that sense of community, like you excelling, is people are living through you and proud of you and happy for you, and ultimately having that safe space to come back to is a beautiful thing. So, no, 100%. There is an opportunity to ask questions. Don't worry, there's no screening or anything. But this is a real unique opportunity to not just ask Alex, but Marvin, two former professional, current footballer, that really important people in our community. Questions about how things are, but please take the opportunity, because this is a real one. So, any questions from the room?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you to all three of you because that was an awesome discussion to sort of like to witness, and I've definitely taken a lot from it. My question did revolve around how you guys handle social media yourselves, but you sort of answered that pretty well. You're taught to tread carefully using social media, but do you have to warn your family against like the same warnings that your clubs, gave to you? Like if my mum saw somebody slandering me on Facebook, she's on there. I guess it's probably the same, right?
Well, it's probably, I wasn't taught anything. No, it wasn't my mum, it was me. It's like people used to go onto me on social media, I'm like, of course I'm saying some shit back. Like, you know what I mean?
Used to cut back?
Yeah, of course.
On your main?
Yeah, when I was like 21.
What, not in
On my main account, if someone's at me, I'm adding them back. I used to add people back. Definitely.
Tick, just
Yeah, because I was just like, no, I'm not let. So some things they just couldn't slide. That's some
It's
more
a
comment.
respect thing as well.
Yeah,
especially
and so I was like, it wasn't rude, but it's just like, you want to say something, I'm gonna give you an explanation for what you're saying, and I'm gonna be very straight up. But no, you don't get to. I mean, I learned the hard way that I wasn't allowed to do that.
But couple FA fans or
yeah?
couple FA fans or
club. Internal stuff. I got pulled a few times. Yeah, but yeah, I wasn't taught. But like with family and friends and stuff, I just don't get involved. Like it's as much as you want to get involved, it isn't your battle, it isn't your life anyway. So like, try not to worry too much and try to avoid it. My family and friends also sometimes would get abuse on social media because of the fact that I was clapping back. So people were like trying to find other ways to get to me. But I think it's all a learning curve. Like I said, it's like, it isn't just your journey, it's everyone else's journey, and there's so much more, even beyond social media. Like, I didn't have to worry about the time, like what you have to do now. Like I could go out with friends and like, it's fine. Like people now, I'm sure if you go out, everyone's trying to take pictures, videos, trying to wind you up to get something on camera and stuff, and then wind up your friends and stuff. I don't have to worry about that. So that's obviously another thing. So like in your world, there's everybody else that is affected as well. So that's a hard thing.
Yeah. There's a broader topic there as well, because as you mentioned, so it's sometimes not even you directly, it's your circle around you, your safe space. And like, what it's like with London. If someone, it's just a thing that it's inherent. If someone's talking, it's like, nah, that's bro. And you're probably telling people like, oh, it's alright, leave. Or you're telling moms, you don't worry about what they're thinking, but inherently it's like they're looking at you.
Protecting your own.
Exactly, you're protecting your own, and that I guess finding that fine balance between you're then trying to say, don't worry about it, it's fine, and then you're just trying to make yourself feel better, like it's fine as well, and then you're still having to go training the next day, and it's a lot. I always say that the job of a professional footballer, anyone that's in the eye of the public, it's so crazy, because ultimately you're not allowed to make the mistakes that anyone else makes, because you're in, it's within, and everyone's given the license to talk and say that they can do exactly what you do, and they never ever have to prove it. Never. How many people have probably said, oh, Alex, you can't even shoot, say it's that you've never had to kick a ball in this arena in your life.
Bro, even some of my boys there, like if I get in this position, I promise you I'm whipping it top corner. Bro, they can't do that.
Honestly, it's so funny. I remember that I did a shoot at OT, and it's like, you're walking on, you go, you know what, the pitch looks a bit bigger than it does on TV. It's like, look at this.
Big pitch.
Honestly, and I often think about everyone's down to work, everyone here does a job, and you probably think, I'm really good at my job. If someone else outside was to come and try and do what you need to do straight away and pick it up, you'd be like, no, you need some time to sort of get to grips with it. Football's like the only thing that someone can say, if I'm for a goal there, I'll put it up top pins. No, I don't think so.
Because football's played at grassroots. People are like, oh, it's just the same. Yeah. I tell people, because I play, like now I play like 7-a-side, 9-a-side, stuff like that. I'm like, this isn't the same sport, just so you know. We're playing two different sports. What I played before is not the same sport as now. Like, you're saying, oh yeah, I could put a penalty, they're watching England. I'm like, cool, we'll take a penalty, put it on the penalty spot, fine. You can probably kick it to the top corner. Before that, now you have to walk 50 yards to do that. As well as that, there's going to be thousands of people watching you. As well as that, it's going to be live on TV.
As well as that, someone's probably saying, your mum.
As well as that, anyway, what happens if I miss? So it's like, you add all of these things on top of each other. It's like pressure. It's not the same. It's not the same at all.
Even on that, did you, when you were younger coming through, did you ever understand the magnitude of pressure, or was it just, I'm enjoying it? And when does that moment switch?
It hit me when I was probably like 12, 13, when I got told that I'm not good enough, like you might be let go. And just that thought of going back to school, I just been let go, Arsenal, or my family hearing that saying, oh, what can we do to help my son? It's like, oh, like, don't know, there's a lot. And then at the same time, I was trying to manage schoolwork, and school was a bit lacking. But yeah, no, I think that's the first time. Obviously, the older you get, the more pressure builds. So dealing at that at a young age, and obviously realizing who was there to help me, even if it got bigger and bigger, the problems, the pressure, I was able to overcome it because of what I've been through in the past.
Any more questions?
You guys sort of talked to it a little bit, but I was just wondering, like, in the modern day dressing room, is mental health talked about like amongst the lads and the teammates? Like, is there people you reach to? I know there's, you've got like psychologists and there's so much like sports science involved in it now. But as mates, as like teammates, do you guys reach out to each other and talk amongst yourselves?
In my dressing room, like we normally like to stay positive. So some people ain't comfortable. Of course, it's normally the ones that are injured that go through a lot more. We don't really get to see them as much, but when we do see them, we're like, don't really come back stronger. Just stay positive, just have a bit of banter. That's how I deal with things. I like to stay positive, but everyone's different. In our change room, there'll probably be people speaking. Because I know Seamus Coleman will speak to me, so you probably speak to other people, or like Tarkovsky, Conor Cody. There's a lot of vocal people in our team now, so everyone has their own way of dealing with things. But I'm sure people like get spoken to.
Yeah. So Pickford's never come to you and gone, oh, man, I'm getting in the ear from the missus.
No. We don't have that sort of,
Pickford's sound man.
Yeah.
He's a proper sound guy. But on that, that opens up a really interesting conversation. Injuries. I know you've had a few. Like, in those moments, like, how tough is it? Because ultimately, you're not able to do what you love doing. And then there's the whole, you might be in the squad and then you'll now have to fight your way back. And I guess one of the most complicating aspects of football that always back in my head is that even though this person is your teammate, you guys are fighting for the same position. And it's like, you have to have that good harmony there, but you're fighting for the same position, like everyone wants to play that. When you go through injuries, how difficult is it to sort of keep a good frame of mind about, I'm gonna come back stronger, etc.? Like, what is that journey?
I mean, injuries, being on the bench, not being involved, all the same. Like the hardest thing, I always say to people, the hardest part about being a football player is not playing football. Everything else is like, if you're playing, even if you're not playing well, you're still playing. You're still not playing. If you're not playing, it's like torture, because all you want to do is play. And then as well as that, you have the things like social media, you have family going, oh, why are you not playing? You have your boys going, oh, what's going on? Why are you not on the team? Like, oh, you're not playing again. Like, I know. So like it's tough. It's tough, and I think I don't even know what's worse, injuries or like just being out of favour, to be honest. Because if you have an injury, it's kind of like
there's a reason.
There's a reason, but like if you're out of favour, it can be tough because you're like, when's the manager gonna get sacked? I'm real. Straight away, you're thinking, I'm hoping to outlast it. I'm hoping to wait
Nice.
I can say this now, I'm done.
No, do you know what's funny? It's because you know when like everyone watch, you can see. You know when you're watching the game and you're thinking, yeah, I remember, does anyone ever remember that the Steven Gerrard penalty miss for Hudson? Yeah, he looked and he thought, yeah, this guy's got to go in this guy. Like, it's true, like, because ultimately it's your livelihood. Like, you're feeding, you're looking after people, you're looking after the community. And most importantly, this is like you sacrifice your whole life to be in this moment and you want to be present in it. And because of one human being, that's the key thing in football. It always comes down to one person, whether you're at academy level, trying to get a scholar, it's always one person's decision that dictates your life. Oh, you're not good enough yet, so you need to go to another club. And you're thinking, so there, when you said that people wait for the manager to test, it's just so real because it's true. It's actually fact. That's hilarious. Go on, sorry.
Hey guys, thanks for your time as well. I'm a Bayern Munich fan, I'm a Germany fan, and we've just been knocked out of the World Cup. Joshua Kimmich said on Twitter, he said he's going to find it very hard not to fall into a hole after the tournament. I just want to get your thoughts on like what goes through a player's mind when they get knocked out of the tournament. Do you guys like still watch the tournament, keep up with it, or do you kind of prefer to have a completely clean break?
It's a great one for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I can talk about my experience after African Cup of Nations because I got a red card and my team got knocked out after that game. So immediately I was just like, oh my god, the whole nation, I can't go back to Nigeria, you know? That's exactly what I thought. But like, luckily for me, because I had a great support system, Nigeria, the Super Eagles team, like they made sure I was okay. At the end of the day, football's a team sport, so they made sure it's not just my fault. Like, obviously there's things that everyone could have done better. Someone scored, they've saved this opportunity, saved a chance. So like, people were always talking to me. I stayed off social media, so I didn't really see what was going on there. But like you said about validation from the people you love the most, they always made sure that you said, oh, you represented us well, you did all you can, sort of thing. So I don't feel like he will go into a hole because Joshua Kimmich is a big player, one of the best players in the world. So I don't see him going into a hole. I'm sure we have a support system to remind him that he's a great player. He's young as well. He's quite young. He's still got a few years ahead of him. So I don't feel like he'll go into a hole personally.
It's international football is such a weird dynamic because it's no longer just football. Like a great example is Ghana, right? Like you've waited 12 years for this moment. And then I felt so bad for him because he's walking up and like you can tell everything's going on in his head. Everything's just like I was there, I watched, I couldn't play. And then you see him run up, you know it's done. as soon as he kicks it, you just see it's like I could feel like
PTSD. That's
what I'm saying. But I could feel like like you feel like your friend's energy. Like every Ghanaian I knew, I just felt like their energy I wasn't even there. I just felt them because it's like you feel it, and then you start going. So what was all of this for? Because football. I was at a conference yesterday. Me and Marvin at a conference yesterday, and someone said that basically your best experiences in life come from certain things. And if you love football, you can remember your favourite moment playing football, you remember what the weather was like, you remember the goal you scored in year 11, you remember all these different things, right? But that's positive and negative. We always talk about the positive, but there's negatives that stay in your mind. So for Ayu in that moment, he wouldn't be thinking if I scored this, I'm a hero. He'd be thinking, right, my dad's a Ghanaian legend, I'm walking it, and it's intense. But again, that's why it's good to have a support system around you. And I think a lot of the younger generation of footballers now understand that. Even though there's so much social media, I understand that, okay, I need to have people where I'm safe. I need to have a place to go where no one else can see, but I'm within it. A lot of, with Reece the other day, and he was saying the same thing about his community and the mandate for him is so important because without that, he would lose sense of who he is. Like, he's come from South London playing football, that is him. So like, if he has the people around him, I think it'll be fine, but it is hard when the whole nation's looking at you and saying that, oh, you've been knocked out back-to-back group games now and everything. That is what's going to talk, but that talk will disappear. What won't disappear is the people around you that keep you grounded and say, you know what, move on next time. It's just a football game. But to a lot of people, football's not football, so it does it does go on for a long time. But it's like when they put Beckham on the cross and everything.
Yeah.
The red card.
Next year, he had the best year of his life.
Exactly.
He won treble.
Exactly. So yeah, it's just about how you position yourself and lock in with the people you need to and try and black out the noise, which is often very difficult, I suppose. Any more questions for you?
I've got one for Alex. Remember the app that you used? Do you know what it was? Headspace. Yeah. And I've got one for Mayowa. You can ask me questions. And Marvin. What advice would you both give to the younger self about looking after your mental health?
Oh, looking after mental health. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. I grew up in Peckham. I went to all boys school in Peckham, and it's one of those things where this false sense of like braggadocious, be manly and everything. Everyone's just like, we don't realise that we're human beings, but therefore we're emotional. And it's only through when you're going through life that you realise that there's so much suppressed in young black men, and there's so much trauma that's suppressed that if you actually spoke about it, you would actually probably be able to navigate. And it's not until things happen that you realise, oh my gosh, I've been holding on for that for so long. And I've had so many experiences where I've had to like relive that, and it's like, I could have just spoken about this a lot. I could have just found a space where I could have spoken. But when you're in those environments, you're not taught that. You're just taught that, oh, it's calm and brush it off, like move forward. But for me, it's just be vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with telling people, well, I'm not all right, or can we talk, or you know what, I'm just not in the right space. Sometimes that's masked with, playing football is a big one. You're playing football, but you're still not dealing with the issue at hand. It's still there. You escape it, but that demon is still with you. So I think being vulnerable and actually talking about stuff is the biggest thing that I've taken to like dealing with my mental health growing up, for sure. And I feel like it's something within men, especially black men that society's kind of positioned us in a way not to do that. If you do it, you're weak, or no one actually cares, just move on and graft. And yeah, you can't graft forever. Like eventually whatever you're running from is gonna catch up with you. So that would be the one for me, just be okay being vulnerable. Like there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't give myself any advice if I had the opportunity to go back, because to be honest, I feel like I had to go through everything that I did to become the man I am today and understand myself to the level and I am, and also people to the depth that I do. So if I had to say anything, I'd probably just say, boy, strap up. It's gonna be a hell of a ride, but you'll be cool, like you'll be fine. So yeah, I'm happy with where I am today. And one of my favorite quotes, again, I just love quotes and sayings and stuff, and one of my favorite is that if you're happy with all the good in your life, then you have to be great. If you're grateful for all of the good in your life, then you also have to be grateful for all of the bad in your life, because that they both make you who you are. And I'm pretty happy with who I am, so I'm grateful for both the good and the bad.
Any more questions? Alex and Marvin will be around for a bit afterwards.
So you talked about academies and going in at 8. What do you think academies should be doing to support their players' mental health?
It's a big question. You know what I think?
Yeah, you can ask. I'm trying to.
I mean, I think first and foremost, we have to start looking at young players in academies as children, because they are children.
Yeah.
And we also need to actually understand what the word academy means. Academy is literally the highest level of education that we have in this country. And education is of so many different forms, not just about playing football and delivering results. It is about developing people to the highest standard that we possibly can. And if we rethink that straight away, there'll be some things that we look and go, that isn't the highest standard, clearly. That isn't the highest standard, clearly. That's very low bar, clearly. And so it is a mentality shift within football from an academy perspective. Educating parents, I think, is important, because a lot of the time, I mean, we've all probably seen a few documentaries recently where parents are on some madness, I'll be honest. You know, like putting their kids through hell to live their dream, essentially. And like, you see these kids and putting pressure on an 8-year-old. Why? Like, an 8-year-old doesn't even know what their favorite color is. It changes every day. You know, kids, all they want to do is dream and have fun. Like, they don't care about anything else. They don't care about money. They don't care about pressure. They don't care about results. They just want to have fun every single day. And so, allow them to be children, I think, that's so important within the academy system in football, because otherwise, how are we going to actually get people who actually want to become professional football players? Because if we keep going the way we're going, everyone's going to drop out at like 15, 16. They're like, all my friends are doing this, having fun, and I've been slaving away, kicking the ball against the wall and not enjoying it. You know, if you actually enjoy it, it's different, but just allow them to enjoy it. You know?
Yeah, I would say in the last few years, tragically, we've seen an increase in young players unfortunately taking their lives or being diagnosed with depression. I think because what's happening is you go through this funnel and your identity becomes, I am a footballer, because you go in at 8, all the clubs are looking at you, then you're there, and then the decisions on 2 people kind of define who you are, whether you're staying at the club for another year, you're not staying at the club for another year, or you get released when you're 16. So that's 8 years of dedicating everything, no parties, training twice a week, your parents might even put you in one-to-one coaching and everything. Then you get to 16 and you don't get offered a scholarship. Your whole world is broken around you. It's such a pivotal thing, and I saw loads of the men then will play for clubs at young level. Only 1 or 2 might get a scholar. Even those that get a scholar, they might drop out of football by the time they're 23. It's a very, very hard industry, but I think at the forefront of that, the development should be around the individual, both boys and girls, being an individual, learning about life and being in a great place. Southampton, with their player care system, do a really good job at that, making sure that you are individual first and foremost. And they make sure that even if it's a situation where football as playing is not going in the direction it needs to go for you because of the high levels, of course, you can still be involved, and this isn't the end of you, that there's still ways for you to navigate. Whereas I think for such a long time before where we are now, it was just transactional. You get in, work, oh, you're not good enough, you're gone. And yeah, like for a lot of people, if you speak to a lot of Alex is, great, he has personality, but if you speak to a lot of footballers and everything, there's nothing to them. It's like footballer, that's it. There's nothing else there because they've been put into this machine from the age of 8. Like, the whole concept of being a stage child. A lot of footballers are that because you're just pushed into it, whereas it's about the fun should be first and foremost. And if you're having fun, you're probably going to be a better footballer anyway because you're just enjoying its expression. And that's why I asked that question about where does it go from expression to a job? Because there's a very sudden switch. You said you felt it when you were 12.
Yeah.
Some of these kids are feeling it when they're 10.
Yeah.
Because, their parents are taking them to 3 or 4 academies to try and get the best one. It's like, well, am I going because I want to play football? Am I going because I need to reach an objective? So I think it's on academies, but on parents as well to realise that your child will probably go further if they're enjoying it. And ultimately, first and foremost, you need to make sure your child is a child before they are a prospect.
Especially with both though.
You can be both.
You can be both.
Yeah.
Like you can express yourself and it still be your job.
Yeah.
Like it's possible.
Yeah.
You see at the highest level of
Yeah.
football. We see in so many industries though.
Yeah.
Like in art in every form, whether
Yeah.
it's film, music, it's people expressing themselves,
Yeah.
and it's their job.
100%.
In football, it's just like, it's just different.
Yeah.
I don't know why we just have a very strange industry that treats so many
That's what
things
we said though,
strange.
formulaic. Like,
Yeah.
even if you look at, things have changed now, but if you look at some football clubs, when you put players in, the players that will get dropped are the players that don't fit the formula of what we are.
Yeah.
You've got too much flair, you need someone that's going to get down the byline and cross it in, you're getting released. It's like, well, no, back to your point, if you have those different individuals, you have loads of different ways of solving solutions, but you're looking for the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And now, great footballers that should be playing in these big leagues are not. And yeah, so I think academies need to just focus more on children being children, and I think there's a shift now with everything that's happened, but it's a societal change that needs to be done as well with all of these things, whereas I still find it bizarre that you can be signed at the age of 8 and clubs are waiting for you to turn 8 so they can sign you. Like, even that whole rush is quite toxic when you break it down for what it is.
Like signing a contract. It's not a contract. It's registration.
Yeah.
That's it. Like signing I signed a 2-year deal, and you didn't.
Yeah.
Like, it's a registration. Like registered for 2 years. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah, no. But yeah, if that can change, I think not only will you get better footballers, you get like just people that may no longer play football, but they're just because football teaches you a lot, teamwork, togetherness. But yeah, let it be more about that side about as soon as you're 8 years old, you're going to be the next best thing. I think it's just a bit too much sometimes. Yeah.
Yes. Question to you both. Marvin, Alex, just tap into your interests away from field of play. It'd be great, Marvin, if you tell us a bit about 180 Productions and obviously Alex talked about Project 17 as well.
I mean, what would you like to know? Because
Well,
one of several things that I do in my time.
What kind of the objective and mission statement of obviously people who are unaware of what it is in the room, kind of the idea behind it?
Yeah, okay. So I guess how I would probably describe myself most now as a filmmaker, and my production company is called 180. And with that, we use film as the medium of telling stories, so of different types, of whether it's commercial, advertising, film in a narrative, traditional sense, documentary, branded content, etc. So we have done a lot of different things so far, and very fortunate that I'm very much in control of my destiny because it's me running the company. So I get to have a massive say in what I do in terms of I don't have to do work with people I don't like. I don't have to do work on projects I don't think are necessarily going to be positive for the world or for people in terms of telling stories, because I think there's a massive, again, I go back to responsibility, I think there's a massive responsibility in telling stories, and that in each of us as human beings, all we do is pass information through stories. Whether that's a short one or a long one, all we're doing is passing on the information, and every piece of information we receive or we give shifts perspective. And so with film, that's an opportunity to shift perspective, and luckily I get to choose to do so in a positive way as much as possible.
that was touching, but yeah, Project 17 is something me and my friends, my brothers have created to just basically showcase what I do, showcase how I am as a person. Obviously, at the end of the day, I'm not just a footballer coming to things like this. We like to get involved with such things like this. But yeah, just to show that me, at the end of the day, I'm a normal person, but also give back to the community, like people that go through mental struggles or people that want to get into football, that there's more to just playing football, that with football you can do a lot of things. Brings the community together, it's a way of enjoying life. And yeah, that's what me and my friends are trying to do with Project 17.
One more question. Let's take this. Cool. Can we have a round of applause for